What is going on, everybody? Hi, Don.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday.
Yes,
How
finally
are
Friday.
y'all?
Um, Still without power. I think I was getting ready to check.
Oh,
Um,
dang.
did you all get hit?
Our power is fine, but we got some hail last night, which around here we haven't gotten in a while. So
Yeah,
it was nerve-wracking this morning. I was like, man, I really hope there's nothing wrong with our truck. No, but I think we're good. We'll see. I need to go get it washed just to see if
yeah,
there's anything like lingering.
yeah.
That sucks though that you guys are still without power.
Yeah. What was it? Tuesday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
Tuesday
the
morning was that big storm. Yeah,
in the power company's eyes are, I can see why they're having a hard time trying to get everybody back up and running. I mean, storm after storm after storm. So,
yeah. I was thinking like, okay, I think the next day it rained again. I'm thinking, would I want to test a gigantic power line in the rain? I don't think so. I wouldn't. So,
no,
anyway, yeah.
fun stuff.
So yeah, we searched around. We like got all of our food into a fridge and a freezer. Vina opened her fridge to us and her as well. So we've been hanging out with them for days. It's just like it's cool and everything, but like I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, be back in your space.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been working on this week? What's new?
We have been Uncle Lonza's team, and we've been meeting probably every single day.
Good.
Mike,
What's up, guys?
What's up?
yo,
How are you? Sorry to interrupt.
no, you're good. Um, we've been meeting every single day, just like what's going on, how can we improve, um, and let's see. I think I told you all last week we got 6 contracts that one week. And now it's like the other side. Now we're working on the dispo side, making sure the handoff is good and all those things. So that's been nicer to just kind of like have a team that's doing all that, and I can step in and just help smooth over the rough edges.
Right.
Myron,
That's been really nice.
what kind of business is the Lonza and Briley team working on? What kind of deals are you looking for?
We're looking for it's nationwide wholesaling. Hold on, Carolyn needs a code for something that she's doing.
Did you send it to me?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So they'll do cash, they'll do creative, and cash creative. We're going through this little growing pain of not locking up a deal that's only working as a wrap. So that's
Those
kind of
exist?
yeah. Oh geez. In Texas for sure. But that's been the whole week of just kind of going through all that stuff. What's up, Jose?
Hey,
Going
Jose.
through the same exact thing you just mentioned. Not locking up certain reps.
Yeah, it's not worth it. You can get the
I think
contract,
you're
but
not doing the rep yourself.
Even at zero down,
only from Chipotle.
Only from Chipotle, is that what you said?
Yeah, I said only from Chipotle. It's called a burrito.
they're so tempting at zero down. At zero or very little down, it's just low hanging fruit.
I mean, that makes sense because then you're just, the cost is the holding, but just like get ready for 8 months of holding
Mm-hmm.
in some areas.
Unless you just have people like lined up looking for places, which is very unlikely.
How is that not a business model though? You know, finding these non-qualifying penalty box buyers in a given market and just feeding those people to sub-2 members. That's, I mean, how is that not why are agents not doing that?
Yeah, Jose.
Or
Why aren't
someone-
agents doing that?
Someone like you.
I'm thinking through it. What's my hang up on doing something like that?
Because, you know, the marketing's similar, right? I mean, you could target those specific types of buyers. And I think, you know, especially for Hispanic agents, I think that's hugely beneficial to be able to speak Spanish to these buyers potentially. So I think a lot of them are Spanish speaking clients.
Yeah. I just see with the Spanish community, most don't want to pay HOA, and most of these wraps that are coming up are HOA properties. So these properties that are, even if they're low on single family, like at 100, 150 a month, it's still like we don't have that liberty to be able to pay a huge down payment, and we're still within confines of regulations and stuff.
Right.
My mind kind of goes to when I was renting my house in Georgetown. I mean, I was there for a while. I was there for 4 years in one house. And the process itself is you give your notice and then they start showing it, right? Well, the owners have to, get an agent to help show it or help list it or whatever it may be. And I'm like, well, why don't the agents that are helping the sellers talk to the renter and be like, hey, do you need a place to go to? Do you have, we have this, maybe a lease purchase or a lease option or, rent to own kind of scenario or wrap that they can get into.
That needs to be a marketplace.
Yeah.
If the deals were set and ready to go, then you could go and match people to them.
Well, had I known that was something that agents could help with, I'd be all over it. Yeah. Especially prior to getting into real estate, I didn't even know that was an option.
And Jose, there are agents specifically who work with renters and landlords, right?
Yep.
So, could a wrap seller go to an agent that specializes in finding rentals for tenants? Could you go to those people and say, hey, look, instead of renting, here's another option for you. We can possibly help you buy a home.
Just call up property management offices.
Yeah, they're always a little bit of a pain. They always feel like they're not going to be compensated, I think. And so you just have to properly explain that to them.
That's their loss.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think that any of us here would pay a commission to fill a wrap vacancy,
Right. Yeah.
Especially if you get in the first couple months, right? I mean, it's a whole lot cheaper to pay a commission in month 1 than it is in month 7.
Yeah.
So, I think I've always thought that there's a model there of how can I accumulate lots of people looking for homes but cannot qualify in a given market, and just placing those with people who are doing wraps and sub-2 deals, seller finance deals.
Then you come across people wrapping wrong.
Yeah, but you can control that a little bit. You can say, look, as the representative for this buyer, I'm going to mandate that it's done this way. If it's not, then you don't get a buyer. Or let me teach you how to do it, right? Let me teach you how to properly structure it so that it protects not only the seller of the property, but also it protects the future wrap buyer of it. Is Carly allowed to be here if she's on vacation?
I'm not on vacation. This is the first time Washington has seen sun in about 6 months, so I'm in my backyard. Not all
You
of
look
us are
very
lucky
happy.
to live in Texas and Florida like you guys. See it all the time.
I mean, do you want storms and hail? Because, you're more than welcome.
I saw that. Everybody in Texas posted that. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. I know you guys were having a good talk.
There was an article on online yesterday I saw, and they said that Texas has hail so big that they had to find a new name for the word hail because it just didn't classify as hail anymore. It was more like a basketball that fell. So that's what we're dealing with.
Apparently, we're up to DVD size hail now. So
DVD. What? Who got like 4 feet of hail?
I think it was
No.
Lubbock.
There's
Huh?
no.
So,
Was it?
Carolyn
Oh.
told me somebody got 4 feet of hail. I'm like, oh my god, that's
No, it's wild.
That'd be so much damage.
yeah. I'm like, that could kill people.
Yeah, for sure.
So Carly, we were talking about finding wrap buyers
Oh gosh.
for people with sub twos. And your reaction
that
is
going?
exactly what we were referring to.
I won't do it. They scare the how have you guys done that? Are you doing that?
Yeah.
How's it
Dipping-
going?
Dipping toes in.
We have a wrap buyer paying us this. This is the stupidest deal we've ever done. Don and I have ever done. And
Mm.
luckily we're getting away with it.
Do you want to publicly say it?
We did this deal in the fall and we sold it to a wrap buyer the same day that we closed on the sub two. So great, right? We gave him a really reasonable rate. I think it was like 7.5% or something like that. At the time, it was reasonable. And he said, let me pay you half of the down payment now, which luckily covered all of our entry fee into the deal. So I was like, okay, let's finish that sentence. And he said, I'll pay you the other half in 9 months later or 8 months later. And 8 months later is Monday. And so I think he owes us something like $17,800 plus interest on that money.
Oh
That-
my gosh.
So yeah, so we'll get away with that one, I think. But
Is he gonna pay it?
yeah,
Yeah.
he reached out to us. He's like, where can I send the money? So
Oh my
Shoot.
god, I was waiting. I
love
thought
that.
that was gonna go a different direction.
Me
I
too.
was getting ready to kick Mike in the
too.
teeth if it didn't work out. And I'd be like, bro.
I want to ask you this because you guys said that you had like a couple months ago. Don's like, I'm over sub two deals. Like I only want to do cash because that one that came back on you guys. What made you do the next step where it's like we're not only wholesaling sub two deals, but we're gonna wrap them? Is this
I'm
been
gonna
a
let
long
Mike.
time coming?
I'm gonna let Mike answer that first, and then I'll answer.
if I were to place them in order of exit strategy for, let's say I acquire sub two and my exit is either rental, wrap, or wholesale, it would probably be rental, number one, wrap, and then wholesale. And
What?
The first two for me, and I'm curious because this is actually going to open up a very interesting conversation. I think the first two I can control.
Mhm.
The third one is harder for me to control. And if my exit is a wholesale, I'm, as we've talked a lot about, we're still in the deal, right? We're still going to get those phone calls at 9 p.m. at night complaining about someone not making a payment or an HOA issue or insurance, and if I have to deal with all of that stuff anyway, I might as well wrap it to somebody and cover as much of my entry fee as possible and even finance potentially the rest with a lender or someone like that. But the cash flow on those wraps is going to be so much more than it is going to be on a rental, probably, unless it's a midterm or pad split or short term or something like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's more of the control aspect and I want to make it clear. I meant I never want to wholesale another sub two deal if I could help it because of that reason. Not because sub twos aren't great,
Mm.
but they're amazing for buyers.
Yes.
or wrap buyers. But from our experience, not having that control but still being in the deal is frustrating when you get to a certain point of doing those types of wholesale creative deals, right? Because it's a lot to manage. Even though you have no control over either side with the seller or with the buyer, you're still the one to where you've created the relationship with the seller and you have the relationship with the buyer. So each person is going to want to come to you first instead of talking to each other. I don't know why. It just is what it is and what we've noticed. Even we can have the conversations with both of them like we do. Hey, here's the buyer, here's the seller. Let's have you guys meet and have this understanding of what to expect from each other, how to communicate with each other when things go awry. And then you also have our contact information. And not once did either party connect with each other first when there's a problem. They always go to the one they made the relationship with first, which I'm okay with if we can solve it quickly. It's just those that tend to get a little awry and a little heated because someone's freaking out. That's where it for me, it hits me really hard emotionally because I want this to be a positive thing, not a negative thing. We're here to solve the problem, not create more. So to Mike's point is on this particular one, I think we just wanted to try it, and we knew that rentals wouldn't be great in that area. We probably would have been negative 250.
Yeah.
So it was a really nice house, but we weren't going to be able to get what we needed out of it, and we're going to be bleeding some money. And then he had someone reach out to him because they liked the house, and were they moving there?
I think his family was moving there from out of the country and they
Yeah.
just needed a bigger house. But what was interesting about this one is that I think I got a phone call from someone on our team right before we were about to close on it. And they said, someone else is trying to sell your deal.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell is going on? It was one of those situations where a wholesaler saw a deal that they thought they could find a buyer for, and then without our permission, just started to market it to somebody. So
2 deals like that right now. I just right before the live, I texted somebody, "Hey, are you in bed with this guy? Because he keeps freaking mailing our deals out. What's going on?"
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I wholesale sub-2 deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's your guys' last option. And I saw Myron like shake his head like yes when you're like they'll go to the connector every single time. So do you guys, because when I wholesale sub-2 deals, I'm like, I'm vetting you guys within an inch of your life. Like you're only going to be sub-2 people. I was talking to Melissa Palmer yesterday and I'm like, can I send you people that I don't know? Like for them to pay to do a credit check? Because I am so scared of that coming back. That's my first question is, did you vet well? And then 2 is my other question is, I'm thinking of doing something. I always make sure that the buyer and seller meet before anything's done. The vibes are good. Everybody knows how to talk to each other. And I'm thinking about like getting a document that's like a hold harmless thing written up, being like, I am just a connector here. This is your guys' deal. If you have any questions, like this is not when the paper is signed and it's assigned to you, not that I wouldn't do it, but do you feel like those 2 things would have helped hindsight on that deals that are coming back to you guys? Because nothing's come back to me yet. So I have not had a situation yet like this.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I did a live with Melissa on Wednesday talking exactly about this, right? It's how can we're actually talking about that next week, but this week was how can we best protect the seller in a sub-2 transaction, right? And I think as you go through some of these things, theory is no longer there. It's practical work, right? We've seen holes in the process, and so we try to fix those holes and fill them. I think that's really going to help. But one thing that occurred to me, and it was really when we talked about connecting a buyer and a seller, I looked at Myron at the same time, and it just kind of clicked with me. If you create a hold harmless document, as part of that document, you could almost have disclosures there that says something like, I will, as the buyer or the seller, contact the buyer directly with any future issues and all of those sorts of things, right? You kind of outline the relationship.
Yeah.
And part of it too, you could say, I have, as the seller, I have met the buyer who's going to be responsible for taking over payments, initial here kind of thing. And what occurred to me is, would it make sense, Myron's earlier Myron question, to almost create a Discord channel or a Slack channel and have all of the contact info for everybody involved, the buyer, the seller, insurance, mortgage, and hey, if you guys need anything, this is where you guys can communicate. So maybe that relieves any sort of intervention necessary by the wholesaler.
That's really not a bad idea. So if you'd have a free Slack, I think it only holds data up to like 30 or 60 days max. But if you want to pay for Slack and have all these people in your Slack, then that's like $9 a person. So that's going to get pretty expensive. So the free way would just be
Email.
maybe Slack, but yeah.
Why wouldn't you
normal
just be
email.
like, here's everybody's contact information at the end, like when you sign the documents, like buyer, here's your text, your forwarding email address, your email, your phone number. Maybe I'm just naive on this because nothing's ever come back to me, but
So you're completely right. And most of our transactions have gone really well. Like there's only been 2, 3. I think it's only been 3 at max. But what we realized, and this was early on, and we had a lot happening all at once, and we were doing things how we were taught and what we know, and then what our TCs were helping us with and trying to organize all of that, which was great, which they did. They got all the contact information for both the seller and the buyer and put them together into a utility sheet and then made sure that they had all of that and then connected them. We got better at doing those communications, right? Having them directly meet or have a Zoom or have a phone call where all of us are on the same phone call introducing each other. And then, as the process went along, we realized, okay, we need to add this. Okay, we need to add this. But we wouldn't have known that until other problems started popping up. And a lot of times what was coming up it was more emotional. Like one was where a seller got nervous because a payment wasn't made directly on the first, right? And so they freaked out because they thought they were being scammed, which they'd already met everybody, but that still is what happens in their mind because they're still unsure, right? And then when something's not paid on time, they worry. So I get it. It was more of an emotional reaction on every single time those people came back to us. And so their comfort is to come to the person they know best, not the person they just met. So I don't know that we'll ever get past that. We could even have the, hold harmless thing, but still, no matter what, they're probably going to want to come back to you anyways, just to initiate a conversation. And that's all they really wanted was the initiation because they didn't know how to approach it or maybe what to say or what to ask. And so that's where this back and forth started happening, which I am perfectly okay with doing. It's the lingering stuff or when they get really upset and they take it out on us when we're not the ones they should be taking it out on. They should be taking it out with the buyer. And so, yeah. But most of the time, we were trying to do everything we knew how to do in that moment to make it as simple as possible. Can it be better? Always. We can always find ways to improve that and make the process a little bit more simple and make communication better. But things pop up and you learn from them. There's things that we just did not anticipate happening that we now know we need to anticipate just in case.
And when I say that nothing's come back to me, I just want to clarify, like I haven't done 56 deals in a month like you guys.
Oh my
so
God.
I haven't had the opportunity. You guys have had more volume than me. So I want to clarify. I didn't mean like I do everything right.
No, I think it was a really good
you guys have you guys have higher volume. So
well, look, this is the problem though. And I think that it's something that you don't really understand until you do deals, right? It's sort of like people who want to get into wholesale sub 2, they think, okay, cool. It's just like cash. I'm going to get it under contract. I'm going to wholesale it to somebody. That person's going to pay me 10 grand and I'm out of it. I'm going to wash my hands with it. Right. But sub 2 and creative finance assignments are not nearly comparable to cash assignments.
Mhm.
Right?
Nor is any creative deal equal to another creative deal.
Not even close.
Even if it's a sub 2 and the same subdivision next door.
True.
It will never end up the same way because we're all human and there's different variables with each seller, with each house, with each property. I mean, it just is insane. And this is how we've learned. And I did not take what you asked personally. I think that it was a very good question to explain because most people don't know. I didn't know things that were going to come up. And to Mike's point, when people jump into sub 2, they think it's as simple as that, but they forget how nuanced it is. It's not, cash is cash. Are there some things that are nuanced? Yeah. But it's nowhere near the extent of what happens in a creative deal. Whether it's single family, multifamily, businesses, it doesn't matter. Anytime it's creative, there are things that are going to pop up that you've never done before, don't know how to handle yet, and you're going to have to figure it out. But the biggest thing is that you have to be willing to do that. All parties have to be. If not, don't do the deal with that person.
You know, and I think that people get dollar signs in their eyes, right? I'm going to assign a deal. Creative is the new cool thing. Pace does it, so I'm going to do it too. And you know, the reality is that, and I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Don and I have definitely seen it, where we're not making nearly as much on a creative assignment or a sub 2 assignment as we are on a cash assignment. And you know, is the juice worth the squeeze, knowing what to expect in the future, right?
And knowing we don't have control of the property.
Exactly. And you know, a lot of people will say, okay, I'm going to wholesale this deal. It's their first one. Here, you buy it. If you don't make payments, it's not on me, right?
Yeah.
They don't care about, they don't really care about the seller's position as much as they care about that $10,000 in their bank account. And, you know, if I could give those new wholesalers any advice, it's understand what happens post-close before you choose your buyer. Because if you're not properly vetting your buyer, like Carly, you are, and Don and I are, and all of us here, Myron and Jose are, something bad is more than likely going to happen. And it'd be tough to sleep, I think, at night, knowing that I mean, we sold a deal to somebody. We assigned a deal to somebody, and the seller wouldn't allow the buyer access to the mortgage portal for 7 months.
Then what?
And guess how many payments were made during that time?
None.
Zero.
Because they couldn't, they tried to call in. I think they even tried to mail a check.
But they wouldn't accept it because it wasn't from the seller.
Yeah.
Or the borrower in that case.
So, and I think the seller was out of the country for 2 months or 3 months, so it was hard to get a hold of them. And then they didn't know and understand how to fix it or what we needed to know, and it became so difficult. And it's like, this is what we need to cover. Like now we need to be like, okay, the what if cases, let's go down that line. Are you going to plan to be out of the country at any point? Are you going to give us any issues if the mortgage is sold? Are you going to let us know if the mortgage gets sold and you get any communication? Like all of these different things now go into that what if kind of questionnaire, and how we need to vet the sellers to anticipate things like this that we had no idea was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who would think that a seller that's going to go out of town for a couple months all of a sudden is like, nah, you guys figure it out. Like, this is your credit, by the way, and we're trying to solve the problem. We're trying to make payments any which way that we can, but you're just, no, I'm good. Like, and then now they're kind of upset that things weren't getting paid. I'm like, what do you expect the buyers to do? How do you expect them to make a payment that they can't get access to make?
the TC shouldn't have allowed that to close.
That's what my question was. Yeah.
That's the other point about the TC that I was just thinking about is, and Carly, I think, did we talk about this separately? I feel like we did, but it's the idea of closing. Oh, it was one of your lives, I think. I think closing a sub-2 creative transaction with an experienced TC who knows what to expect and how to handle it is so incredibly important and underappreciated in a lot of ways, right? There are these people who are, trained as creative closers or creative TCs, but do they have the experience? And what Don and I have realized, I'm sure each one of you has as well, is every single transaction has its own issues unique to that transaction. And so you need someone who is experienced with the knowledge, or at least access to that knowledge, to close those transactions, not just to protect you as the wholesaler or the buyer, but also the seller, like in this situation, right? It's doing a disservice to the seller if the buyer cannot get access to the mortgage portal. Plain and simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I
So
gotta
my
jump on another meeting. I'll keep it running, but I gotta jump off. It'll probably be like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okie dokie. All right, bye.
I got to jump off it too. But so my question for you guys is, what would you do different? Knowing you've learned a lot, because you wouldn't have known that stuff had it not happened. And you've learned a lot, but you still would do sub-2 a wholesale deal last before a wrap.
I would do, yeah. So I'd wholesale it last, if those were my three options. But the first two present their own challenges, right? If I want to buy a rental, I need to have some money to close on that transaction. The same thing with a wrap, unless somehow you're able to find a wrap buyer who is going to close the same day that you're closing on your sub-2 deal and brings enough funds to cover your entire entry fee, which is like the unicorn, right? It's like the perfect scenario. I've had that happen a couple of times, which is amazing. But one thing that we're really taking into account, I talked to Melissa Palmer about, is making sure that the deal is structured correctly to best protect the seller. I can kind of go into that here in a little bit. But then secondly, it's how can I best protect the seller by picking the right buyer? And going to someone like Mel Palmer, who can potentially underwrite a buyer for you, or even like an RMLO or someone like that. I mean, why not implement something like that where that person's not necessarily checking their credit, but they're checking their income to make sure that they can afford it. And maybe they're pulling credit reports just to see what debts they do have, and then compare that to income and just make sure that there's going to be enough money at the end of the day to pay it. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's a really important and sensitive time in the transaction to find a buyer who you can trust more than likely is going to make the payments.
Yep.
And to some degree, you have to let that trust go, right? It's like, okay, we've done our best, but do your best. That's the thing.
Yeah. I think when it comes to where we are now and looking at creative deals, we didn't buy, but I think, we bought like 3 that we didn't want to buy. And then offloaded 2 of them later. But I think it also depends on the mode that we're in, Carly, is like, are you looking for quick cash, or are you looking to start building your portfolio?
True.
Do you have money available from PMPs or PMLs, or do you need to build up capital? I think that really depends on where someone is right now. I mean, we could even take into account like Pace. Pace has different waves of buying because he's doing different things at different times in his business. He's always a buyer, but maybe he's pumping the brakes a little bit at certain parts of the year at a certain timing of other things, because maybe he's getting something else that's even bigger than just a single family home, or maybe he's trying to buy a business, or he's trying to give himself a little bit of a break so that he can build more capital in other ways. So I really think for me, when I look at it, is like, okay, do we have the capacity right now to buy this? Do we have the capital? And is it somewhere that we want to actually hold it? If it's not in any of those 3, then we will more than likely either wrap it then or wholesale it, because we're not going to want to keep it. But if it comes down to those two, you know, I think wrap would be the better idea if it's got a great interest rate. But if it doesn't, and it can be for someone else that is very specific, then yeah, we'll wholesale it to somebody. It's not that we're going to stop wholesaling creative deals, but we're going to put that as like our third option, depending on what we're doing in our business at that time. What about you,
Points.
Jose?
End zone.
I think this is probably going to piss people off, but I think wholesaling is a position that was put in there that wasn't meant to be, right along the lines of what even a real estate agent, like technically you go back in time, you're going between buyer and seller, and that's it. Now you've got an agent helping buyer and seller. Now you've got wholesaler helping agent, buyer, seller, or buyer, seller. So you're creating positions that are creating more and more liability, in my opinion. So
More middlemen.
yeah, more middlemen. That's it. Your risk tolerance has to go down if you're going to be making that type of money and that position. You have to know that that risk is going to be there. But if you want your risk tolerance to go up, you don't want much risk at all in the deal, and then you do it the old school way. It's just you're a buyer or you're a seller, and that's it. You have the most control. So I totally get where you're coming from, Mike. That's why I'm switching over to not fully buying, because obviously I get to cherry pick and stuff with the team. But Q3 here, I know everybody says the right time to buy is whenever you find a good deal. And that's true, but I prefer to buy even better when the market is down and I could put some value add into the property. Now I've got a purchase price that's super low, a low interest rate, and I've got equity that I'm building into it. Why not wait?
You know, it's one thing if the big advantage to sub 2 right now is, one of the advantages at least, is just interest rate arbitrage, right? We're buying deals that are 4.5% or less, while the market is offering a 7.5% or 8% interest rate. And so it's attractive to buy rentals that way. And if you are trying to build up wealth through real estate, it's a great time to buy sub 2 deals, but you have to be well capitalized to do it, right? You have to understand that very few deals are going to cash flow right now. And there are other advantages to buying rentals. And I think that people really have to identify what their strategy is and think through all of the elements to it, just to make sure that they are in a position to move forward with their desired exit strategy. And I would much rather, to Don's point earlier, and what we've talked about a lot lately, is I would much rather cherry pick like you, Jose. And if I do have buyers in other markets who are looking to preferably long-term rent properties who are well capitalized, that's my perfect buyer, or someone who's going to live there who can afford it, right? I'd rather not sell it to someone who's going to wrap it, or someone who's going to be a landlord and not well capitalized, because the reality is that unless they've done it before, kind of like Kyle Gate in a lot of ways, if you buy deals that are intended to be wrapped and they take forever to sell, you're screwed, unless you're really well capitalized, or unless you have funding partners who are well capitalized. And so, I love sub 2. My biggest concern is that because of some knuckleheads who are just trying to make that $10,000 assignment fee, that things are going to be done incorrectly.
I mean, just think about Carly and the situation where she has people coming to her that say, "Hey, I locked up my first sub 2 contract," and you're like, "Oh, how did you do that?"
I'm like, you're giving us a bad name. I know. I'm so careful on if I'm wholesale. I'll say no to things before it gives me a bad name or sub 2 a bad name.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we, kind of like to what Melissa does, why don't we start to form our own proprietary group of buyers who we know are good buyers?
Yeah.
Well capitalized.
Instead of a blacklist, a green list, something like that.
Yes.
A green list. We've done the research. We've checked. We've run them through whatever process we need to run them through to do that. We can figure that out later behind the scenes, guys. But, if we have a green list of people we know exactly where they're buying, what we can do now is offer that sort of agency service without, I know that there's legalities there, Jose, but how can we bring buyers to other people who are in the sub-2 community and people who are going to perform? And if we can control that, we
Yes.
control a lot of the market, right? We can control, first of all, how the acquisition is structured, then secondarily, the buyer who is more than likely going to pay.
Yep.
I'll cut you guys in on a deal if you guys can find me buyers for these 2 sub-2 deals I have that are legit.
Where are they at?
One's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. One is in Evans, Colorado.
Fayetteville.
And
Yeah, send the details.
What's
I
the
will.
North Carolina one look like? Yes, put it in the group chat.
yeah, for sure. I'll send that to you guys. And then I might have one in Flagstaff, Arizona. It would be an ovation at the end of today. Fingers crossed.
It's kind of sad that Myron wasn't here to benefit from our new business model, because I don't know.
He's
bad.
cut off. He's cut off.
Or is this like a one of those situations where it's done on his StreamYard, so he has to get some sort of money? Yep.
He's already called dibs. Is essentially it's his
Right.
it's his live. So
That's
no.
right. That's right. But it's controlling those things that I think is really,
Yeah.
really important. And this craze of creative, I think, is awesome. I think it's freaking awesome. And I also think that there need to be guardrails put on it for a lot of people, us included,
Yes.
right? I mean, we have to be
Yes.
doing it correctly.
And sometimes the reality is that when we get busy, sometimes things get a little bit laxed. Even though we don't try to do that, it's just going through the motions a lot of times, and you forget certain things unless you have someone diligently checking on you. Like, oh man, I totally forgot to do that. But it's one of those things where if we don't create that kind of environment, which sub-2 has for the most part, but at the same time, there also needs to be another level of protection and communication and awareness, and just having these open types of discussions of, hey, we're not vetting you because we think you're a terrible person. We're just trying to figure out who you are as a buyer and match you with the right property, right? Like, I only want to sell sub-2 deals or creative deals to people in sub-2. I don't think I sold one to anyone outside of sub-2 at all. And I make that a conscious choice because things go wrong. Things go wrong, whether they unintentionally mean for it to go wrong, or it's things that are unexpected, or you find out that maybe people don't have the best of integrity because things happen, they're human. But I never want to work with some people that are consistently doing those things that aren't willing to take feedback or criticism, or, hey, let's work on this. Let's try this option. Hey, instead of you doing it this way, why don't we change your approach a little bit? Because it makes the whole transaction that much more efficient.
Or
And stable.
earning the right to buy it. That's
Yes.
that's part of the thing too, is that what we are providing is a resource, something that is not available to the general public for the most part, right? We are providing them with a house that may or may not have equity, but the real value is in the mortgage that's attached to it. So it's a special thing. It's like a golden ticket, I feel like, right? And so those people who earn those golden tickets should earn them. They should be valuable people to us, but also they need to be able to ensure and prove to us that they're going to be responsible buyers. And so it's almost goldenticketrealestate.com.
Hurry up and go buy that before someone else does.
Ready?
Please pause it.
Seriously,
Golden
I'm gonna
ticket
go buy it
sub-2s.
if you guys don't for us.
You think
I
golden
love that
ticket
because-
real estate's not available? That's nothing was sold like right when GoDaddy came out.
I love that it also keeps us of high character and integrity in our business dealings as well.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. We've seen what's happened to wholesalers because the majority of wholesalers lock up deals too high, have no idea what they're doing. And now there's places like South Carolina that are outlawing wholesaling, and it's just a matter of time, I think, before that will happen with creative, unless there's people dealing in high integrity, high character, transparency.
Yeah. And, I know the question that's going to come up from people is be like, well, you're in sub-2. Isn't that vetting enough? No, it's never vetting enough, because even though I'm selling deals to everybody that's in sub-2, I still vet those people to figure out, hey, how many deals have you done? Where have you done those deals? What's the biggest story you have or the craziest story that you have about a transaction you've done? Like just getting to know them a little bit better, because I may have a deal and that is a long-term rental, but they're looking for X amount of cash flow. And I know that doesn't fit this buyer, but they're like, no, I want this deal. I want this deal. Well, why do you want this deal if it doesn't fit your buy box? Oh, because the interest rate. I'm like, yeah, but you have a bunch of other interest rates in here that you could go find that actually do cash flow. Why this deal? And it's when you ask the deeper questions is when you start to understand how this buyer thinks. So don't take it personally when people do vet you even further. It's not, to put a scarlet letter on your shirt. It's just to figure out what it is that matches you best. That's all. So we have to keep going levels deeper and deeper and deeper so that everyone is happy in a transaction.
So how are you guys vetting other sub 2 people? Because I have a sub 2 group that is looking at this house I have, but I don't know them. I talked to Melissa Palmer and I'm like, can I just send people to you for them to pay to vet you? And she's like, I don't know. It might be like overkill doing it what I do, but I mean, I can always pull their credit. Like, how are you guys? What is the next steps you guys are taking to vet sub 2 buyers to make sure that that you don't necessarily know?
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Schedule of REO. What do you have? And show me your lease agreements. If you got multiple properties and the properties are leased out, cool.
Show me your HUDs, right? Like, because if someone asked me for my HUDs, I'd be like, okay, sure.
Well, that's the thing. I thought so too, that HUDs were good, but what if these properties are not being paid for and that the leases aren't good? So that's why I asked for lease agreements, and then I go and look on the market and see, oh, okay, this property's got this so-and-so lien on it. Well, maybe that deal didn't work out great. Yes, they closed on it, but what's the lease agreement look like?
Yeah.
And also maybe a current mortgage statement for each property.
Yes.
Right? Is it up to date?
Yeah. Credit's not always a good indicator.
I know it's not.
No.
So running that might not be the best.
No,
it's terrible. So if you can show me deals that you've purchased, if you can show me that the mortgages are up to date, and realistically, I'd probably want to see revenue coming in because the worst case scenario is going to happen at some point, right? If you have 10 properties that are rentals, 3 of those are going to be vacant at some point, and you're going to have to be responsible for paying the mortgages. Can you afford that? Right. And so maybe creating some sort of like an algorithm, like a vacancy algorithm. If this happens, could you afford it based on the money that you have coming in otherwise? I don't know if that's overkill, but
Proof
I would
of funds,
Yeah.
It's not from Abraham.
Not from Abraham, no.
Can you create a proof of funds in
I've actually asked
Jose
that
De Leon LLC, please?
I'm like, can you give me a real proof of funds that you did not go talk to Abraham about? I think he stopped doing those anyways, but.
And another thing that I do is I'll ask for references for people they've done deals with.
Yeah, that's good.
And if I really want to be a sleuth, then I'll search their name in the Facebook group and see what things they post or what deals they've done, or like the things like, oh, I just bought my first sub 2, or hey, just bought this property here. When people ask questions, it's just getting a vibe for who they are. So I dive a little deeper if I don't already know them, and even if I do, then I'll ask them, hey, why do you want to buy a property here when you only buy on the East Coast? This is in Texas. Is this your first property in Texas? Like, oh yeah. I'm like, are you sure you want to buy over here?
We have 4 feet of hail.
So it's just kind of figuring out what seems small are actually really big indicators of what this buyer is about. And you never want to match them with a property that doesn't fit. Yeah. Because then who are they going to blame? They're not going to blame themselves.
Lori brought up a good point in the chat where she said, check the equity on the properties that they do own. And that's so great. And that goes along with, like, what type of properties do you buy? So if we're wholesaling a $600,000-$700,000 house and they all have condos, nothing's over $200,000, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. That's a really good point. So, I mean, those are and these are things like we should all compile, like just put in there. What are your vetting questions? What do you do when you start wanting to wholesale a deal to a buyer? Just list them out.
We should ask Mel if she wants to have a new part of her business. Because I'd pay for that. I'd pay for them. No, I'd tell them to pay for it.
Yeah, no,
And
they
you
have
don't
to
have
pay to be
do the
approved.
time, the effort. You pay, like, if you want my sub-2 deal, you can pay Mel. She's going to do everything we just mentioned, or somebody should. Yeah.
And it's almost like a Facebook of buyers. Like, you know, you get into a Facebook, and then when you've been verified, you get the special blue check, you know, something like that. And then it kind of lists out deals that you've done, like just list out address by address.
You get into a special Discord or something like that where deals are posted there if you've been approved, something like that.
We should just call it the promised land.
Oh my God. You guys, we need to make this happen. They have to pay to get in there and pay to get vetted.
Well, this is honestly why I reached out to Mel in the first place. It was post-summit. And I said, look, this is my biggest issue right now. And her model fits exactly what we're talking about.
I know.
It's a vetting of somebody. In this case, it's a buyer, right? And if I'm a real buyer, what I'm going to want to do is make sure that I'm vetted, right? So I can have opportunities to more deals.
Mm-hmm.
And so would it cost $1,000? I don't know what the cost is, but if I'm looking to build up a portfolio of properties, I'm going to want to prove that I'm a great buyer. And, you know, having an inventory or a directory of great buyers, I mean, shoot, I wouldn't you access that if you had a sub-2 deal, even before you contracted
Oh,
it?
hell yeah.
Mhm.
I'd pay
Like,
for
hey,
that.
this person's buying here. Why don't I run this deal by them to see if it's something that they would want, how much they would pay for? It's sort of like reverse wholesaling it a little bit, right?
It's kind of like an investor lift for a buyer. I
feel
mean,
like we should stop talking about this publicly.
I
yeah.
do too.
Say that.
We need to stop and we
Can
need
we
to
rewind
go.
this, please?
Can we
Dang it,
stop?
Rick. Do you see Rick? Rick, get off of here. You're too
Rick!
smart. You're going to be way too fast.
No, Rick, we can bring him in. He can be our integrator.
Yeah, he's the developer. We just have the ideas.
Rick, we'll be in touch. Don't steal
Yeah.
these ideas.
You better not have just bought that domain. You're going to make everyone very upset.
We had a great meeting with Rick today. We had a great meeting with Rick today, and the first thing he says, because we were due for our renewal of Open Dispo, and we paid that, I think, earlier this week. And Rick was like, "Hey, I got a check from you. Great day." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was awesome." And so the thing about Rick is that he provides so much more value than what we pay for. And those of you who have Open Dispo, you guys know that. But Rick's a great guy to work with.
Larry, I don't know what you would get, man. I have no idea. What do you plan on contributing?
Hopefully not a car, right? Just kidding.
Glad you're okay, Larry. Rick, it's good to see you, even though I didn't get to see you today. Well, I think this is a good idea. I think this is like the next layer that needs to happen when we're in, talking about vetting buyers. And I see this question a lot all the time, even in the creative financing group and in SUBTO. How do you vet buyers? How do you vet buyers? And everyone's a little different. Everyone has a different set of questions they're asking, but that also is because they're doing different types of deals. So it's hard to figure out, well, I mean, I have a system, but I don't have a system. It's kind of the vibe of the person, and if I know that person, and then how deep I want to go, and then just going from there. So it's not always an exact science, but there is just some general questions that you can kind of go over. But having a space where I can just pop in and be like, ooh, well, Jessica buys here and Carly buys here and Jose buys over there. I can just filter it, and then they can update their own buy boxes by state. And then we can see a list of all of their transactions they've done, and then have those verified by Mel.
What I'm kind of curious, since some people are listening to this, if we were to build something like this with verified buyers, and if we let's say that we do provide you with a buyer, would you be willing to pay a small fee for us providing you with a buyer who is more than likely to perform?
I'm already thinking way ahead to an origination point. You're already not getting a brand new loan. You're not
100%.
paying for a new loan, so you should be paying some type of.
It should not. I think it should be a decent sized fee too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think to get. I really
Agreed.
do.
Weed
No.
out.
Because when you pay less for something,
Mhm.
you value it less. Like, I think you need to be like, it is exclusive. The best of the best get in here. You have to be interviewed. You have to be background checked. You have to prove HUDs. You have to show us all your equity in your house and your cash flow. And you're going to be looked at with the inch of your life. And then you can have access to our good deals.
No, I don't think it should be deal contingent, Larry. That's no way. Because we're trying to get to the buyers that are truly serious.
Yeah.
And to Carly's point, when you pay less for something, you don't take it as seriously.
You
But
don't.
when you're spending real money, you pay attention to it a little bit more. I
You
know
do.
I do. It's like, oh yeah, it's like how many subscriptions do you guys have that you don't remember that you bought? I have a ton of them. It's crazy.
Yes.
At one point, I had 2 Netflix accounts and 3 Hulu accounts.
Mhm.
I was like, I don't even know how this is possible.
And like Rick said, so you make a subscription and then let people have 5 accounts if they want.
Yeah. And
Not
my
bad.
thought process went to, okay, if someone's truly serious about being in a system like this, then it's, hey, you pay a yearly fee and then a monthly service fee, because we have to have those funds to be able to spend the time to upload all this stuff, and for the developer and for the site and for so many other things. But it's also that monthly fee to keep you engaged, right?
You guys have to
Because-
bounce, but stop talking about this idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
We need to get on our own little Zoom. I'm just kidding. You guys can talk about whatever you want, but I have to go. Love
We
you.
can change the subject. Bye. Have a good weekend.
Bye, Carly.
Um,
Jose, what are you working on right now? Are you doing anything really interesting?
Finally getting alleviated with somebody that's super consistent, and they're helping me out. So I'm not a one-man show anymore.
Dude, that's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard
Yeah.
to find consistency.
And you always hear people talk about other people, and just like, you have to trust your own gut and go with that, because word of mouth is only so much. And then like what you see and what you truly feel from a relationship should not be based on somebody else's opinion. So I'm giving a younger guy a really good shot, and people are very surprised that I'm giving this younger guy a shot, but I see a huge potential in him.
You know, the most successful people in sub 2 have typically partnered with someone who's really young or really green, but motivated,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if you're young or super motivated, you're going to find a way to get the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
they're
Mhm.
also a little bit more moldable, right? They're not set in their ways. So
Yeah.
it tends to make things a little bit easier.
Yeah. Are you doing sub 2 deals, Jose?
Not as of recently, just because I went local and I went over to like cash deals. So I'm seeing a lot of cash that are converting into wrap opportunities.
Interesting. How so?
Just through the deals that I'm filtering out. So I'll either filter for super high equity, and we'll do cash seller finance pitches, and then I'll go for newer construction in certain areas. Those turn into wraps. But I'm trying to filter for a certain HOA fee, because I'm realizing the consensus through a few different wrap people that I've talked to now, it's just that HOA fee has to be super low, if any. Your possibilities of exiting on a wrap or disposing a wrap is so much higher when there's no HOA.
And Florida has lots of HOAs and expensive HOAs.
They're everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. So it's tough.
Yeah, we ran into issues with deals in Florida where they had multiple HOAs for a single property.
Yep.
And some of them are for a golf course, for example. And if you don't play golf, it's like, why?
What am I paying for? Yeah.
Yeah. And so those HOA fees can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's crazy. And that's not even a condo.
Yep.
It's a house.
Not only that, they get picky, man. I left a garbage can, and they left the HOA. I got fined like $700, but I was gone for a couple months, and that thing turned to like $2,500 with attorney fee. I was just like, this is so stupid over a garbage can that was left out for a couple of days.
Which instead of writing you a fine, it would have taken the same amount of energy just to move the trash can.
That's it. But they're looking for fines. And then, yeah.
Yeah.
I could go into like neighbors that are HOA and they're just looking at your every move because they're retired. They've got nothing else to do.
Mm.
It gets funky. It gets odd.
Jose, without giving away too much information, because if you think that this is impactful, I know that I've talked about this before. I want to do a podcast with you on this, but the NAR settlement, do you think that it's going to be pretty impactful for, first of all, just the general retail environment, but then also for investors?
For investors, it's going to work out much better than the retail environment, in my opinion. I know a lot of people in the real estate industry are saying, well, we'll find a way around it. But I'm seeing certain, like, yes, you'll find a way around it, but there's certain loans that won't let you find a way around it. For example, a VA loan, you can't go and pay for a certain fee outside of what's the commission that's granted in the listing agreement.
Interesting.
So I found that one out, that if you wanted to pay a buyer's agent, you couldn't on a VA loan.
Yeah.
Just
Interesting.
what I've heard. I'm not positive on that, but yeah.
So a lot of times that's to protect the veteran, right, from being taken advantage of. And not that every agent will, but if you give them an inch, sometimes they'll take a mile, right?
Yep.
And so that kind of was the situation with my parents when they built this house. Luckily, they built the house and it was fine. But what the builders didn't like was that we were going to have our own inspector, our own VA inspector, come out and check the house on top of the regular building inspector.
There's two.
Yep. So the building inspector came out and was like, oh yeah, everything looks great. The VA inspector was like red tagging everything. They're like, nope. That's wrong. This is wrong. You need to fix it. And they were only a couple weeks away from closing.
New construction, you said, right?
New construction. Yeah. But even on buying new homes or older homes, they'll do the same thing.
Yep.
Hey guys, I got to run.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend, guys. Jose, it's great to see you.
You too, man. You too.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Yeah, these new construction properties, even some builders were rejecting home inspections. If it wasn't vetted through them, I was like, yeah, I think I'm out of here. I don't want to sell new construction anymore.
No.
So,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing two different inspectors, in my opinion. Look, if you want me to use yours, great. I'll use yours, but I'm also going to use mine.
as the builder, it gets expensive.
Sure. Well, no, but I mean, if they want me to use theirs, great. That's fine. But I will pay to use my own inspector as a third party to come in. I'll pay for it because then you who do you go with, right? And more than likely, the person buying the home is going to be like, well, I'm going to go with my guy.
Yeah.
Because my guy is saying that this needs to be fixed and it's your issue, not mine. So it's very interesting. Jenny, I'm so glad you popped up. I was looking at that house that you sent in Cape Coral, just checking in on it, and it's still up. I could not believe it. I was like, this thing still hasn't sold. So, and they did a huge price drop. So I thought it was interesting that I just saw you in here. So, got to figure out what's going on with that. But anyways.
Isn't that crazy, the amount of price drops they'll go through before letting someone take over their loan?
Yeah.
Like they'll get rid of 80 grand, 100 grand of equity just to get rid of the loan.
Yep. Well, what do you have going on this weekend?
This weekend, today, actually right now, we should have a mobile home flip up on the market. So that's going to be feeding my Q3 buys. So I'm excited for this one to sell.
How much did you put into the repairs?
I put like 15,000.
Was that enough to do the full?
It wasn't that bad. It was just a tenant that left, and we had to finish cleaning it up.
Oh, okay.
To put it on the market. Yeah, we bought that in like 2012, 2015, something like that.
What's the spread on it?
Full. Got it paid off.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was one of those really, really bad looking deals back in like 2010, 2012, where you think like because a property's going for 20, 30 grand, 40 grand, you're like, I shouldn't touch this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we picked up 2 of them and now they're worth $250,000. Yeah.
Oh my God. Are they on individual lots or are they in a park?
Individual lots and not renting them. Yeah, we own the lot too. It's part of the mobile home. So it's a badass sale. So we're getting it at the top of the market now because I don't think we could get as much as we are now next year. So
No,
exit.
but I mean, still, it's $500,000, a mill with a trailer,
Quarter
a
mil.
mobile home on it.
Yeah, 250. We'll be putting it up this weekend.
I was like, when you said you were going to use it to fund your Q3, I'm like, what? But
Mhm.
now that I know that you've owned it this long, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yep, gonna sell these 2 and just take a little bit of a break this summer. I'm taking my mom, dad, sister, and my daughter to Italy, end of June, and then I'm gonna stay out there for a little bit. My daughter's gonna come back with my mom, and then I'm gonna meet her over at community camp.
Are you going to community camp?
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you get a ticket?
I don't know.
Oh,
I'll
I'm
tell you.
jealous.
I'll tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should just tell me. Well,
I'll be
I
out
guess
there.
I guess everybody else is hopped off,
Yeah.
getting
What
ready to go enjoy the weekend.
do you got going on?
My best friend's husband, which I could call him my best friend now. He's my best friend. He passed the test. It's his birthday today, so we're gonna go have dinner with him, and then other than that, I might go back up to Oklahoma to help my sister move into her new house.
Be safe out there.
Yeah, I will do my best.
Wish you the best.
All
Yeah.
right, man.
Enjoy the weekend.
I'll see you later.
All right. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.